our job is to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, not from where you were when you were 20 years old and you started making dumb mistakes. That's in the past. We can't do anything about that.
You need to feel comfortable with the answers that you're given whenever you do ask that question. And you need to like who you're working with, because once again, this is a relationship, and you need to feel comfortable with that the person you're working with is acting in your best interest. Yeah. Welcome back to another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. Eric Douglas, Chris Vaughn, where we talk about all things investments and finances as we enjoy a pour of some delicious bourbon, in this case, what I'm assuming will be very delicious bourbon.
We're going to find out here in a minute.
We're going to find out for sure, but I would imagine it's not going to be anything less than delicious for today's selection. So today's edition, we're going to talk about something a little bit interesting, because obviously we meet with clients and prospects regularly.
Sure.
You know, we have new clients coming in fairly regularly, and I think the experience for most is usually something different than what they were expecting.
Right?
Coming and walking into the door, and most people, I think there's a lot of anxiety or around coming in.
100%.
Because usually the hardest part of just about anything in life is starting it, getting started, right?
Yep.
You got a project around the house. Once you get started, it's usually pretty easy to finish.
The first step is always the most difficult one. I don't care what we're talking about. Always.
The 1,000-mile journey begins with one step, right? So usually the first step of working with an advisor is coming in for that first meeting. And there's usually a lot of anxiety around that first meeting, because most people don't typically understand or know what they're getting themselves into, or they might think that it's going to be one thing, and then they usually are pleasantly surprised when they find out it's usually something completely different, at least when they walk into the doors of our office.
Right.
Anyway, now I've heard stories about other offices where that might not be the case. But I figured we would walk through a little bit today around what kind of to expect during that first meeting. What actually happens in that first meeting? What are we talking about? What are we going through? What are the surprises? And, what can you expect and not expect to actually have happen during that really first, let's call it introductory, or what we call the discovery meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, I'll let you introduce the drink today.
So we're going to do something a little bit different. This is a bourbon that I have several bottles of this at home, and the rule is this does not leave the house. But I thought it might be fun to do this one today because of an experience I had when I got this one. So we opened this bottle up right before we started recording. I have not tasted it. You haven't yet, although here it comes.
I just did.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not waiting for this.
This is Old Forester President's Choice. The reason I thought this one would be interesting, we've talked about how the bourbon industry is slowing down. And I got a really, really good example of just how much this is slowing down. They offer this once a year. It is sold out in minutes, always. Right? You're lucky if you can get your hands on one. The people who have several either like to wait in long lines, or they are connected out the what's-its, right? Last year I got a bottle of this. They release it in June, and you have to get in the queue. Now, first of all, they're going to ship it to you. They don't have it at the distillery. They're going to ship it to you, so they'll only ship to one of, I think it's 6 different states that they can legally ship it to, Kentucky being one of them. You have to get in the queue, and it opens at like 10 o'clock in the morning. If you are in that queue last year with less than an hour to go, you're not going to get anything. So it was on a Saturday morning. I get in the queue at 9 a.m. or 9:15 or whatever it was, and it tells me, I'm now in the queue. I seem to remember thinking I was way back. I don't know why. 10 o'clock it goes live. And at that point in time, it actually tells me that you have approximately 45-minute wait. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. But that was normal. Okay. 45 minutes comes and goes. And when I finally got on, however long it took, they've got 10 barrels or whatever, and each barrel is listed. This particular one, for example, is barrel 203. So I knew this was 203 when I bought it. I don't know if 203 is better than 196. I have no idea, right? You don't know. There were only 2 barrels left out of the 10 or whatever it was last year when I even got there. And I was in line
that they choose to be this president's choice.
Right, yeah. that are picked for this, right. And it's the president of the company makes the choice. That's the whole point. That was last year. This year, I knew it was coming because I'm on their email list, and it was on a Saturday. And I typically spend my Saturday mornings in June mowing and cleaning up around the house so that I can enjoy the evening and my Sunday. I got in the queue, and I got busy. I mowed the yard. It takes several hours to mow my yard. I got other things done, and I was done. I was getting ready to relax. And I pulled my phone out to look something up, and I went, oh, my gosh, I forgot. I'm not going to get a chance. I went ahead and logged in anyway. There were still 5 or 6 different barrels available.
Hours later.
Whereas in 2025, it sold out in less than an hour. In 2026, with roughly the same amount available, hours later, they still had some. So I thought that was a good example of this is one of the most desirable bottles there is. Their other big one from Old Forester would be what they call birthday bourbon.
Yep.
I would argue that President's Choice is better than birthday bourbon. I know other people who would disagree, and that's fine.
You're not wrong either way. Let's be
no,
real.
they're both pretty outstanding, to be honest with you. So anyway, that's what goes on behind this. I did pay retail. You do have to pay shipping. Shipping on one of these is $25 a bottle. It's being shipped one county away because I live in the next county over from where they make it. The gas would be cheaper to drive there and pick it up. That's not how this works. So this is one of those bottles that if you have to ask what the retail is, you're not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So just be glad if you've got one of those friends who opens their bar up, as you like to say, and if they've got some of this out, great. So you are not going to see this too often. The stats, I said it was bottle 203. This particular one was aged for 92 months, which I believe is a little over 7.5 years, if I remember correctly. And it is 61.8% alcohol. So that's what, 122.6? Am I doing my math right? So this is up there. It's not the hottest thing that we've ever had on this show, but it is way up there. So hopefully this is a really good pour. And well, we'll give you some feedback after we talk about our subject.
For sure. So, topic. Financial meetings, first meetings, discover meetings, and as you're sniffing that and making faces.
Wow. The nose on that is incredible.
For those that are not watching on YouTube, you could tell Chris just...
eyes just rolled back in my head
He just knows the bourbon and took a sniff of it, and he is a fan. So with that being said, so first meetings. I figured we would maybe kind of run down what to expect, things that we go through, and what are we really looking for in a first meeting, and maybe kind of dispel some of the myths or anxieties that people have around those first meetings. So I think first and foremost, if you want to kind of start talking about what it is that we look at, what are we looking at as advisors in the first meeting?
Okay, so I think every person is a little bit different. I think the main thing that I'm looking for when I'm sitting down and talking to somebody for the very first time is, what do they really want to accomplish here? And this is where you have to put on a little bit of a therapist or a counselor hat, I guess. Mm-hmm. What a lot of people will come in and say they want, well, I want to make my money bigger. Or I want my money to get bigger, but I don't want to take any risk. My personal favorite is, I don't want to pay anything in taxes. I've heard that one more times than I care to think about. I always tell them, the government is really, really good at one thing, and that is getting the money that they think belongs to them. So if you think you're getting out of this with no taxes, you got another thing coming, right?
Some of the worst things in our industry are those commercials that say, avoid the government or get out of taxes. No, you're not going to get out of it.
You're not getting out of taxes. You can minimize them. You can mitigate excess taxes, sure, but you're not going to have to pay any taxes. You can give that one up.
The only reason you might not pay taxes in your lifetime is because you die, and your kids are going to have to pay taxes. Somebody's going to pay the taxes.
You're not going to pay any taxes if you lose money.
Yeah, well, that's another way.
That's a different story. But my thought is, I need to get into somebody's head to find out, what are they really trying to accomplish? And 9 out of 10 of them, it always comes back to, they are afraid to run out of money. right? They're afraid they're going to lose. They've had some kind of experience. Most of us have. And they're just afraid that the money is not going to be around as long as they want it for. They're not going to be able to spend it on what they want to spend it on. They're afraid that their kids are going to fight over it. And there's a million little things like that. But that's what you hear the most. And my thought is, what I need to be doing when I'm first meeting with a client is find out, is this a good relationship, right? Are we a good fit for you? Are you a good fit for us? But I'm going to do that by trying to get into your head and find out, what are you really trying to accomplish? Because some of the things that people say are just too vague for you to really hit that. So that's kind of step number one for me.
I'd say just at a very base level, what I'm looking for is obviously what you're trying to accomplish, what your goals are, all that stuff. But I'm also trying to figure out, do we like each other?
Right.
Are we, because, we talk about this being a relationship. We've talked about that numerous times over the course of this podcast. We're entering into a new relationship with someone, and we need to make sure that we like you.
And it's a long-term relationship.
and it is very much a long-term relationship, and we're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing us, as it should be, right? It's kind of a courtship, if you will. Not to get too terribly official with it, but that's what it is. So is it someone that we like? Is it someone that we really, really want to work with? That's usually kind of the first thing we're trying to figure out. How well do we get along? So really half of the meeting in the discovery meeting, there's a lot of small talk, banter.
Absolutely.
Just, hey, how are you? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your family. What do you like? What don't you like? Obviously we're trying to get to know you. We're trying to, figure out if we like each other, but we're also, I'm making mental notes here. Of,
absolutely.
Okay, what is it that's important to you? If I ask you, hey, tell me about yourself, usually you're going to go first to the things that, define you the most, or how you see yourself, right? And so how is it that you see yourself? And, I can figure out pretty quickly what's important to you based upon, what you're leading with and what we're talking about as we're getting to know each other. So that's certainly something very, very important to me, is to understand, obviously what's important to you and where you're coming from. I'm also trying to usually snuff out, like, what are you actually doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you in the office? Because some people, usually the reasons that people will tell you sometimes are going to be a little bit different than the ones that they're not telling you. And usually, especially the ones that are going to be a little bit guarded at the beginning, there's usually people that are always going to play their cards close to their vest.
Yep.
We need to get over that first and foremost. Because if you're going to keep your cards close to the vest, we can't help you.
I can't possibly give you the best advice if I don't know what's really going on.
Yeah, and it's
right. I can't.
Yeah, and so we need to kind of get over, and that's part of why we want to get to know you, and we want you to get to like us, right? Obviously, so you feel comfortable opening up to us, because we can't have a fruitful relationship as your money manager and financial planner if we don't really know kind of everything that's going on. But yeah, we're really looking to see if, okay, are you really here for the right reasons? What are you trying to do? Are you just trying to get some free advice? Are you just trying to?
And that happens more than you think.
Yeah, and really, I think more people. This is kind of both sides of the coin, right? So you got people that are coming in, they're looking to either validate what they're already doing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing. Or they're scared of what they've been doing, and they're almost ashamed of what they've been doing, and so they're a little bit ambivalent about sharing what they have been doing, because they feel a little bit of shame about it.
So that actually leads into another question: is what do people expect? And I think one of the things that a lot of people expect when they come in to meet with a financial advisor for the first time, especially if they've never worked with one at all, which we get that a lot.
Oh, sure.
They have a lot of anxiety around, well, I know I haven't been doing this well, and I'm going to be judged. Trust me, you're not going to be judged.
No,
and I've had people go, well, I know I've done some stupid things. You don't even make the top 10. Right? We've all done stupid stuff.
And we're happy to share our stupid money stories.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Okay. You don't make my stupid list, much less the ones that I've talked to people about, right? Because you do this long enough, you hear some stories.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just stories that make you go, "What? Really? That happened?" Oh yeah. So don't feel like we're going to judge you. Our job is to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, not from where you were when you were 20 years old and you started making dumb mistakes. That's in the past. We can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that people come in with, that anxiety. You said they kind of hold things close to the vest because, well, I don't want to tell you about this part because it's embarrassing. Get that stuff out of your head. Right? Don't be embarrassed. People like us are here to help you. That's kind of that point. Some other things that I think advisors really look for is, what do people bring with them? That tells me a lot. If I didn't tell you bring in X, Y, and Z, but you just bring in things. And I've told people all the time when they call and they say, well, what should I bring with me that first appointment? Whatever you want me to look at, right? That tells me a lot about where your priorities are. The one thing that I do like to tell them is, I want to see a list of the questions that you want answered. That tells me you put some thought into it. I love to tell people, every time you meet with me, I'm going to give you homework. And the homework is any question that pops into your mind that is not something that has to be answered right now. That's what phone is for. But I want this question answered. Write it down. Put it in your phone, wherever, so that you don't fail to ask the question, right? But if people bring in a list of questions, when they get through that list, they always feel better, right? Because they know they had their questions asked. When they bring in a stack of paperwork, I know they're overwhelmed. My personal favorite is when they bring in a stack of envelopes that are opened. Whatever was in that envelope has been taken out. They've looked at it. They've made notes on it, put it back into that envelope, and then they label the envelope, right? And if they had one thing like that, okay, that's fine. But the people who do that, they might have 30 envelopes. That tells me a lot about where their concerns are, where their priorities are, things like that.
So usually half of that time is then now spent. Okay, you can throw this envelope away. You don't need this.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and 90% of it is throw this away. Yeah. Well, do I need to shred it? No, there's nothing personal on here other than your name and address because, post office has to know where to deliver it. That's not confidential. But it does. When you talk about what are advisors looking for, I'm looking at what you bring. That tells me a lot. Especially if I'm talking to somebody who's worked with an advisor before, right? Maybe they're thinking about a change for whatever reason, and the only thing that they bring are financial statements or documents. They don't bring anything involving insurance. They'll bring life insurance stuff, right? They don't bring anything about other forms of insurance. They don't bring anything about estate planning. They don't bring anything about taxes. So that tells me that the advisor that they've been working with tells me what they do, right? So now I know the expectation that you have, or at least I've got a good idea because this is what you've done in the past, right? So now I have to look at what are you expecting from us versus what we are typically going to do. So there's so much that we can figure out about what somebody's looking for by simply what they bring with them.
Yeah. In that first meeting, what you bring with you is really not terribly important.
No, it's not.
It's more or less, once again, figuring out what's important to you, asking a lot of questions. But really more than half of the meeting, especially in that first discovery meeting, we're just talking about you.
It's almost all small talk for the first half an hour or so because we're just getting to know each other.
I'm really not even talking shop. I'm doing my best to avoid talking shop. If I start talking shop too much, I try to stop myself because that's not the point of the first meeting. The first meeting is really all about you. What are your concerns? Why are you here? What do you want help with? And really trying to help people, verbalize what it is that they want help with because sometimes they haven't really thought through exactly what they want. They just feel like they maybe need help or someone told them they should be talking to someone. What are you really looking for? And once again, help with my investments is one thing, but I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money and I want to know whether or not I can retire 2 years early because I really hate my job. That's a different goal, right? Yeah. Okay. So what are you really worried about? Because we need to know how to solve that.
Go ahead.
You were about to say something. Go ahead.
No, the main thing, when I talk about what people do bring and what I want them to bring, I want you to bring your questions because I want to make sure they get answered. And we've all done this. I had some questions I wanted to ask this person that I was going to meet with for whatever reason, right? And then you get halfway home and go, oh, you know what I forgot to ask? That's miserable. We've all done it. I don't want clients to do that. That's why I say write it down. That really, to me, is the only thing that I really want you to bring the first time that you meet with an advisor.
I always kind of chuckle when I see clients walk in with a notebook.
Oh, love it. I love these people. I mean, but that's my
And they open up and they're like, well, clearly you have something top of mind for you. So let's talk about your questions.
I love those. But that's my main thing. I want to find out, what you're trying to accomplish. Is this going to be a good long-term relationship? If you're, say, 55, 60 years old and you're looking for a good financial planner who's going to navigate the retirement portion of your life, well, how long are you going to live? So you're looking for an individual or a firm that's going to be with you for decades, right? That, to me, is what I'm looking for. Is this going to be a good long-term fit, right? So, all right. We talked about what advisors look for, what people look for when they first show up. You go into any number of different offices of financial advisors. Most of them are going to look the same. Are they trying to impress you? Are they trying to make you feel comfortable? You know what? My advice to people, when you go talk to advisors and you talk to a couple, three of them, which is what most the Dave Ramseys of the world will tell you to do, how comfortable are you when you walk into that office, right? It's not what color is the sofa, right? Or do they have lots of brass and mahogany? That's not what you should be looking for. Am I comfortable here? Is this a place where I actually look forward to when I come here? Those are something that I would add into that.
It's interesting when we moved in here, because we've been in our office, half a year now.
Yeah.
6 months, 7 months, something like that. When we were putting together the layout and the design, we were very adamant because we actually were working with a designer who had worked with other financial companies before. Right. And she's like, well, they've typically gone this route. And we were pretty specific and said, no, we don't want to go that route. We want to be decidedly different in the way that we design our office and the feeling that you get. So we're far less formal on purpose because we really want clients to feel comfortable. We don't want them to feel intimidated. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the old school financial feeling, the wood panel on the walls,
exactly.
the leather.
They're trying to impress you, and that is intimidating to most people.
Yeah, and so we decidedly were very specific when we were putting together design for this new office, and that we wanted to be far more comfortable, far more inviting with the color schemes that we use, the furniture that we use, and the way that our office was kind of laid out. So it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah. We joke about this. We tried to do some things here that are different, and we stole some of these ideas from some other advisors out there. It took us a little while to get this up and running, but I get the biggest charge out of people when I talk to them and they go, well, I saw your menu up front. That's something so simple. And just to let you know, if you've never been in our office, there is a menu when you come in of the drinks that you can order, right? And what they are is irrelevant. The fact that there is a menu, people are just amazed by that. So that's kind of my point. When you go into work with a financial advisor, are you comfortable being there? We tried to design our office to be not just different, but comfortable, a place that people actually wanted to come. So let's talk about some other fears that people have. We talked about the fear of being judged. What other fears do people have? One that I hear a lot is, the biggest question that we get is the fear of running out of money.
Sure.
I think there's another fear that some people have is, the fear of being taken advantage of. And we've talked about that one in the past. The reason I got into this line of work is because my parents got really poor financial advice. That angered me. I got into the business and found out, the kind of advice that they got actually paid a nice commission. See, I didn't know that when I first got into the business. And I think there's a lot of that fear, but As we've gone to more of a fee-based model in our country, I think a lot of people get into this fear of if I start working with you and I'm not happy, right? How can I get out? Mm-hmm. Have you gotten that one a lot?
Not really, because I mean it's so simple that there's no long-term contracts here.
I agree, but I don't think they realize that a lot of the time.
I think the bigger fear is the fear of being sold, right?
Oh, good one. Yeah,
it's the same time. It's no different than when you go to like a used car lot, right? You know, you go to buy a car. I said used car, any car lot, really. You go to buy a car, and you're just constantly on guard because you just fear, you don't want to get sold, quote unquote. You don't want to be sold, even though you might be there to buy a car.
Right.
Someone's going to sell something to you if you need to buy a car. Someone has to sell something to you, and their intentions might be totally pure, but because you are guarded and you don't want to feel like you're being quote unquote sold something. That guard immediately goes up, and you're a little bit more anxious around the whole transaction. I think some clients or some prospects more specifically come in thinking that same thing where that guard is up because they don't want to be sold. I see it more with men than women.
Yes, agreed.
It's not so much about being taken advantage of. It's more so they feel like they're dealing with a salesman. Mm-hmm. That's not what we are. The farthest thing away from what we are is any kind of sales guy. We say the word sales in front of our partner Brian. He'll,
oh, he gets bent.
he'll have a heart attack, right? He's like the worst. Like he does everything. He's like the anti-salesman.
Yeah.
He'll almost give you every reason in the world to not work with us because he just doesn't want to be seen as a salesman.
Right.
So we're very much not that way.
So that actually leads in. Let me ask you the follow-up question. If you're worried about being sold, if you're worried about being taken advantage of, what should you be doing? What questions should you be asking?
Well, you're worried about being sold specifically because of the connotations around the bad advisor, right? And it's like that with anything, right?
Absolutely.
What makes the news? The 1% of cops that do something stupid or the 99% that are doing something awesome every single day and putting their jobs on the line and protecting people, right? You hear, you take that about any profession, right? Mm-hmm. Teachers, nurses, doctors, whatever.
There's I don't care what the profession is. There's bad out there.
Yeah, there's always bad, and the same thing with our profession. You hear about the Ponzi schemes, right? And you hear about the Bernie Madoffs. You don't hear about the other 99% of all advisors that are out there trying to do the right thing that have your best interests in mind. Most of us do. Maybe it's not 99%, but it's definitely above 90, right? Yeah. It's not like the old days when we're all selling products. That's not what the business is anymore, and that's not what we do. Right. But I think to your point, if you are aware or wary, I should say, of being quote unquote sold, education. It's all about education. Make sure you're asking the questions why. We've talked about this before. Anytime someone that you're any advisor that you're talking to tells you something, you should ask why. Well, this is our investment philosophy. Well, why is this your investment philosophy? They need to be able to answer that question.
When you say that, the thing popped into my head is the little kid.
Yeah, be a little kid.
That always says, why? Well, that's exactly the way that you should be. Maybe not quite as obnoxious as the 3-year-old, but you should be asking why. And if they, to what you were saying, if they can't answer that question, and I mean comfortably answer that question, that should worry you. Yeah. Right.
Or really, when it comes to the recommendations that they're making, why are you making this recommendation?
Correct.
How is it in my best interest? What are some other alternatives is another good question to ask. Mm-hmm. If I'm not comfortable with this, what is something else that we could look at? Because I always got an alternative.
Yep.
I've always got probably 3 or 4 different things that we could possibly do to implement your plan in a way that's going to keep it on pace. It's just a matter of, one, which method do I think is the most effective, and 2, which one is, going to be in your best interest, right? Yeah. But we can always find other ways to skin a cat. It's just a matter of making you the most comfortable with the way that we do that. So when you're talking about questions to ask, really it just goes back to just one question: why? If you're comfortable asking why, and you should be comfortable asking why, be that little kid, because really there's no other specific questions that you need to know. But just you need to feel comfortable with the answers that you're given whenever you do ask that question, and you need to like who you're working with, because once again, this is a relationship, and you need to feel comfortable with that the person you're working with is acting in your best interest.
Yeah. One of the things that I hear out of people, I would say at least half the time, probably more than that, when I'm talking to a potential client, is they say, I just don't know enough and I want to know more. And I think that's a great problem. Not that you don't know that much, but that you want to know more, that you're actually engaged in learning. And if you're talking to a potential advisor and they don't want to educate you about what they're doing and why this part is important and how these pieces fit together, that should be a red flag.
I think what's interesting about that question, because I hear that from time to time, and usually this is going back to what are you really asking?
Yeah.
What are you really trying to get at? Usually they don't really want to know. What I've found from personal
I agree.
experience.
They say they want to know.
They say they want to know, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to alleviate that fear of getting sold, that somebody's getting one over on them.
Yeah.
And so that they're really that's really what they're concerned about, is trying to not be sold. They want to make sure that they're comfortable with the plan that's being given, obviously, and they want to feel like they understand it. But really, at the end of the day, they don't care. They just want to know that the person that they're working with is taking care of them, and they want to feel taken care of. If you can alleviate that concern in most cases, for most clients, not to say that we're not happy talking about why we're making any recommendations. I'll talk about it all day long. But usually when people start asking me more of the intricate questions, more of those detailed questions, to really understand kind of our world and our industry and what's going on with investments and the market and the plan, I'm happy to go down those rabbit holes. I'm an investment guy. I will nerd out on investments.
Yep.
I love investments. But the second I start nerding out on investments with clients, I can usually see it just whoop, the eyes glaze over. Start talking about alpha and Sharpe ratios, and they're like, "Whoop, okay, I'm good."
I tell people this, and I'm kind of leading into the next question about what surprises people most. When I'm talking, I've had so many people say, "Well, I want to know more," and I say, "Okay, great. I'll educate you as much as you want because it's my nature. I'm going to geek out on this stuff. I can talk about it all day long." But what I tell them is, and this, I always find people get surprised by this, after the initial kind of onboarding phase where now the plan is built out and now we've just got to go live it, right? I love to tell people, and I might have stolen this from you. I'm not sure who it was, but I want your absolute undivided attention for about 3 hours a year. And the rest of the year, I don't want you thinking about this at all. I want you going out and doing your life and living it, having a good time, right? That's where we kind of built our branding around that. And I'm always amazed at how people look at me like, what? Because they've never heard anybody talk to them like that before. To me, the real goal, and I love to tell people this, is my job is to educate you enough so that when you have a decision that needs to be made, should I buy this thing or that thing? Should I do this or that? Should I not do these things? My job is to provide you with the information that you need, that now you make an educated choice. And I think that goes back to another one of those fears. You're going to tell me what to do. No, I'm going to tell you what I think you should do. I'm going to tell you what the ramifications of these decisions are. It's your life. It's your money. You're going to make the decision. My job is to educate you so that you're making a good decision and you know what you're getting into. And I think that surprises people a lot because they don't expect that.
Yeah, it is interesting. We're in one of those industries where people, I think maybe because of the nature of the industry that we're in, where people are maybe more curious about what we do, or just because there's so much news about our industry. I don't know, but it's interesting when I call a plumber to go fix something at my house. I don't care what he's doing. I just want it fixed.
There's no TV shows about how plumbers do their job, right?
Yeah, I don't need to know what he's doing. I just need to know that there was an issue when he got there, and when he leaves, the issue is fixed.
Right.
And I have a fantastic plumber, by the way, and he'll answer anything that I want, but I don't ask because I don't care. I don't want. If I wanted to know,
does it work the way that it's supposed to? That's all I care about.
Yeah, right? And you can apply that to any industry.
Sure.
I'm not picking on plumbers by any means. They're in a lot of ways they're doing God's work too, right? They're doing some of the dirtiest jobs out there.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, but it's just interesting. I think you see it with realtors, I think, and you see it with us, because there's so many like real estate shows, and there's so many, there's channels dedicated to our industries.
There are TV channels dedicated to our world. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's just interesting that, more people feel like they want education. And then when you actually kind of start going down that rabbit hole, maybe they don't.
I think that the typical client, at least once they get into their retirement years or they're approaching it, what they really want to know is, am I going to be okay? Am I going to get can I retire and live the way I want to? Can I not be worried about money? They're actually fairly simple questions that are complex to get to the answer. But to your point, they don't really want all the minutia. Yes, there are some exceptions for the people that are listening that are engineers. Yeah, the engineers want to know the detail. It's kind of the nature of the beast.
Engineers are simultaneously the absolute best and the absolute worst clients.
The best and worst clients. Yep.
It's so funny. I love engineers. But
my favorite clients, and I can think of 3 or 4 of them right off the top of my head, are all engineers. But it's also one of those that Annalise, who works up front, knows when she schedules those clients, book an hour after the appointment, because the chances of us just sitting there rambling on are pretty high, because they love to geek out. It's what I do. Of course, I like to talk about what I do, and then it's going to go a little bit long. But to your point, they are also the worst clients in that, how many times do we have to go into this? And I think I've told this story before. Somebody that ended up not becoming a client. He was an engineer. His wife didn't want all the detail. And the meetings he just kept asking, and he's that guy that he reads a spreadsheet the way that Neo reads the Matrix in the movies, right? And his wife was just exhausted every minute. She couldn't take it, right? And that's probably one reason why they eventually went, this is not for me.
Yeah, once you earn those guys' trust, though, and girls' trust.
The best clients, absolutely.
Yeah. But, sometimes they're a little difficult up front, but it's okay.
So let's talk about, I think this is a really, really good question here, is how are plans built? And that's an interesting one. And I would tell you that this is one of the, in my not very humble opinion on this subject, this is one of the real differentiators from one advisor to the next. Financial planning is the hot topic in our industry. It's one of those phrases that it has become very much a catchphrase. When we go to symposiums and educational classes for us, and you're listening to what other advisors are doing, they're always talking about the investments and or the insurance component. And then they say, well, then I did a plan for him. And I always get that, German Shepherd head cock thing going, wait a minute. You did the investments and or the insurance work for them, and then you did a plan. That is so backwards to my way of thinking. And that's where I think, and we're not alone. We're not the only people who think this way. Yep. That is one of the big differentiators. When you go in to meet with a potential advisor, what's their plan of attack? I think that's a differentiator. So let's talk about the way that we build a plan. We can't speak for everybody else.
Well, I will say, if you go to see an advisor who's 55 and up, it's probably going to be a decidedly different experience than if you go to someone who's younger than that.
I turned 55 almost exactly a month from now. I'm not going to fall into that category.
I said 55 and up. It wasn't an accident, because I was making sure Brian was taken care of too, right? But yeah, I mean, maybe it's 60. I don't know, but yeah, you're right.
The older advisors,
the kind of the older school, we're going to lead with investments and money management and that sort of thing. In a world that some of that stuff has become a little bit more increasingly commoditized, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just not the value proposition anymore. The value proposition really leads around planning. And so we talked about what the experience is and how plans are built. Well, the way plans are built is we need to know you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a matter of, oh yeah, come to us because we're so great and we're going to get you X amount of return and we're going to be better than all the other guys. That's not the case. Not to say that we're not better than the other guys, right? I mean,
we just have a different approach.
We probably could be, and we can still get the same returns, and we can still do very, very well on the money management side of things, but that's not necessarily a differentiator. The differentiator is the plan, the comfort, right? The comfort that you feel with the person that you're working with, the comfort that you feel with the results of the plan and the outcome and how you're going to achieve those goals. That's far more important to a lot of people because, most people are by nature going to be very emotional about money, as they should be. So. It's very, very important to them, right? And so, alleviating those concerns and alleviating those negative emotions that they have or those anxieties that they have about whether or not they're going to run out of money, we have to alleviate those. So the way plans are built, honestly, it's far more interpersonal than I think most people ever think about or believe prior to coming into the office. That's why we spent so much time so far talking about getting to know you and getting on the kind of the same level and understanding where your concerns and where your anxieties lie, because we need to know what we're solving for. Yeah. The actual mechanics of the way plans are built, I can give you our softwares. I can talk to you about the way we, what we do and, how we, construct cash flow analysis and put together budgets and, develop income. We have all kinds of different programs and softwares that we use for that are proprietary to kind of our industry. But the way plans are built, honestly, is trying to figure out what's most important to you and solving it.
So I was meeting with a potential client the other day, and I think it really took them off guard how much I was leading with, what does this look like? And please. All right. One thing about the bourbon, little side note, when Eric is going for a second pour, I know we've had a good one today. So anyway, I think they were really surprised. They were a referral from another client that we have. And it was very clear they did not know what to expect. They came in with a stack of paperwork. Now, I had talked to him on the phone, and I said, you feel free to bring any of these things with you if you would like. I will look at as much or as little of it as you would like. But what I really want to do is just kind of get to know you and figure out what you're trying to accomplish. And I don't think she believed me, to be real honest. So she brought all this stuff. I looked at one piece of paper. The rest of the time, I kept talking about they're getting ready to go on a cruise. They've been on one cruise in their life. It was, decades ago. It's a totally different world. And we got to talking about that cruise. And what I was asking about is, what are you looking forward to? What parts are going to be important to you? Blah, blah, blah. And he had that look in his eyes like, can we talk about some business now? And I eventually got to the point I said, you understand what I'm trying to do is find out what you really want to accomplish, what's really going to make you happy. That's, to me, the planning. We can do it in a number of ways. To your point, there's lots of software out there and all that thing. What is going to make you happy? That's the goal. And the old Stephen Covey approach, work the plan backwards, right? Mm-hmm. This is the goal. This is where we want to be. Now what's the step before that, the step before that, the step before that? When we get that done, now we can decide what kind of investment should be used here, right? Instead of walking in and saying, well, I want you to get me at least a 10% rate of return. You don't realize how bad of a question that is or a statement. Yeah. The goal is what's going to make you happy, right? What's going to make your life enjoyable. That's the way that you really build a plan, is starting with what's going to make you happy. And there's no possible way that you can go about that based upon what somebody else does. Yeah, it's unique to you. And that's one of those things in that initial conversation. I think so many people get wrapped around, this is what my neighbor does, this is what my friend at work does, or somebody that I go to church with talked about. What's going to make you happy is unique to you. So you need to be starting with that. What does life look like if it's perfect to you?
It's interesting because there was a prospect meeting, and they've since become a client. Mm-hmm. They've been a client for a few years, and wonderful clients, and they're great. But it was funny because I remember the first meeting we had with them. They brought their statements,
Oh yeah.
And they wanted to, and they were ready to kind of talk about, their money and their statements. And they were kind of like, well, here's our statements. And I'm like, okay. And I kind of grabbed them and I put them to the side on the table. And I was kind of continuing the conversation that we were having. And I was kind of asking other questions that weren't so much related to the dollar amount on their statements. And so we kind of went through the meeting, and I kind of said, okay, well, I appreciate you giving me the statements. I'll make sure I review these, and we'll start putting together the, preliminary plan, et cetera, and come back in, schedule the next meeting. And it was funny because I had no clue what these people were worth.
Right.
We get through the first meeting, and we were not talking specifics around dollar amounts, investments, or anything. I think they were kind of wanting me to look at their statements to, I don't know, verify or
tell them if they were on the right track.
Exactly. Talk about, oh, great, how much money they had. And like I was going to treat them differently that way because of that. But it was interesting because they left, and I finally looked at the statements. I said, oh, well, yeah, these will be probably some of the bigger clients that we have. They were not small statements. Not to say that we classify anyone as our best clients at all, because some of our best clients, I guess, probably have lower dollar amounts, right? It's not about how much money you have. But they definitely had a sizable portfolio. But I think they were trying to lead with money, and they were leading with investments, and they expected me to talk about investments and talk about money the whole time, when really I was talking about goals,
right,
and plans and family and all the other things that were, not necessarily related directly to any of the things that they expected to talk about when they walked into a wealth manager's or really a financial planner's office.
I think too many people get wrapped around, and this kind of goes back to some of the other things we've talked about. They get wrapped around what they think that we do, and it's like ultimately you're thinking that a financial advisor is a money manager. You use that phrase. We bought a book of business from somebody a few years ago, and as we were going through the process of transferring over, we're meeting with his clients and with him and with us at the same time. And he kept saying, this is the new money manager, because that was, quite frankly, what people were expecting. And it comes back to that philosophy. So when you're meeting with potential advisors, see what their philosophy is here. Is money the goal, or is money a tool to help accomplish the goal, right?
Drove me nuts in every meeting that he was calling me a money manager. Yeah.
Every time he said, Chris is our new money manager. And it's like, no, I'm not. Yes, okay, that's part of what I do. But that's, once again, when you hire a carpenter, do you ask them what brand their hammer is? No, you just glad that they've got one, right? Yeah. So that kind of goes into the last thing that we had on our list was misconceptions about wealth planning. There's so many here. I don't even know where to start. Part of it is, what is wealth planning, right? And there's too many people that think that it's money management. Money management is a part of it, but it's not really the goal.
And that's the part that leads CNBC and Fox Business.
Absolutely, but remember, those are news programs. We've talked about this ad nauseum. News is always going to lead with what gets your attention. That's why the old saying of if it bleeds, it leads. That's what's going to get your attention. But that's not the everyday. That's not what real wealth management is. It is a way of making sure that your life is lived out the way that you want it to. All right? Wealth management is just part of that. The things that you want to do, the things that you want to buy do cost money. Where does that money come from? Right? That's wealth management. The things that can cause that great plan that you've put together to fail. That's wealth management. How do we mitigate those risks? All of that is part of it. Too many people are like, well, wealth management is, you're going to make my money bigger, right?
It's part of it.
It's part of it. What's
ideally,
the goal?
yes.
I mean, yeah, but I'm not going to take risks that are unnecessary. Why in the world would I take your money that you're planning on using in the next 3 years and go out and buy SpaceX or whatever the latest fad type stock is? As of right now, I think SpaceX is actually down from where most of us, if we bought it, was. that would be a horrible idea to invest your money that you're going to be using in the immediate future in that. But it sounds good on those TV shows, right? That's not what wealth planning is. Wealth planning is making sure that you can go live however you want to and not be worried about, is there going to be enough money there, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that we're going to be judgy.
Yeah.
We don't care. We don't care. We go back to the plumber, right? Use the plumber analogy. The plumber couldn't tell you how many bathrooms and toilets they fixed and what the things that they've seen. Same thing in our business, right? We've seen it all. We've heard it all. We've done, we've had so many conversations with so many people. We've seen all of the money mistakes. Mm-hmm. We've made a lot of the money mistakes ourselves, right? We've talked about that, and that a lot of the mistakes that I've made have led me into the position that I'm in now. So I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, is that we're going to be judgy. When someone first walks in the door, we don't care. Trust me, it's not our place to judge. I have no authority. There's no place in.
If anybody has earned the right to judge, I am furthest from it.
Yeah, there's only one person who's going to judge anything, and it ain't going to be me. So I think that's really probably the biggest misconception that really keeps people from walking in the doors. They're maybe ashamed of what they've done before, or feel some level of shame, whether they should or not, whether that's rightful or not, they do. That's how they feel. And that keeps them from coming in and then seeking the help to maybe change that course of behavior. I don't care what you've done before. You're here. You're trying to solve the problem.
Right.
Okay. It's like, I see that at the gym a lot. To make another analogy, you see people at the gym that are maybe overweight. Mm-hmm. Those are the people I love to see at the gym, but they're probably thinking in their head, well, I'm at the gym.
Everybody's judging me.
Everyone's judging me. No, the people that are in shape at the gym, when they see someone who's overweight at the gym, I love seeing those people. Good for you.
Because they're trying to improve themselves.
Good for you.
Yes,
you were taking the steps that you need to take. Usually those are the most encouraging people. Mm-hmm. Same thing applies here. I don't care what you've done before. You come to our office, you're here now. Let's figure out how to get you going forward on the right track. And that's probably the absolute biggest misconception that we need to dispel about kind of our industry, is that it's only available for millionaires, quote unquote millionaires, or people with money, whatever that means, right?
Yep.
It's not the case. Our firm tries to be for everyone, and we try to help as many people as we possibly can. And even if we can't help, you know what we're going to do? We're going to tell you where to get help.
Yeah. I want to kind of wrap this part up with one last thing that is a misconception is, and I've heard this more times than I care to think about, I don't have enough money to work with a professional. I think that's a horrible way to look at it. There are a lot of firms that say that you have to have a certain amount of money before we'll work with you. There's no question that that's true. And it's not one of those, you're not rich enough to afford me. That's not the approach. They don't have the bandwidth to handle everybody, right? And that's the truth. And something that I had no idea the truth of this when I first got into this business that I do now, the $1 million client is about the same amount of work, arguably less than the $100,000 client, right? So don't go into it with, well, I don't have enough money for you to take me on as a client. And the reason for that is you don't know the resources that we have. I have a client that to this day is less than a $100,000 client that I've been working with for years. But the amount of money that has come into our firm from referrals from that client is way into the 7-figure range. We don't get a big paycheck off of them directly, but our firm is bigger because of all the people that they've sent. So if you have this concept of, I'm not a big enough fish for you, yeah, you need to come in and talk to somebody like us, because quite frankly, everybody has value and you just don't necessarily see where that value is. That's a huge misconception. Please do not ever think, I don't have enough money to work with a good financial planner.
Some of the clients I once again, I don't want to say best, right? Yeah. But some of the clients I really enjoy working with are the younger clients that maybe don't have as much money, but they're looking for guidance and they want to do things the right way and they want to put themselves on the right path at a young age.
Oh, love them.
I love working with them.
And they're easy, by the way.
They're easy, but it's enjoyable because you can. Sometimes it's a lot easier to show progress with a lot of those clients, and it's fun to watch them hit milestones.
Oh yeah.
And so I look back at some of the first clients that I was taking on when I got into this business years ago, to see the progression that they've had up until now. I'm thinking, literally today, just today, I've been in communication with two of my very early clients, both of whom have started businesses and are in completely different financial situations than when I began working with them 6-7 years ago, something like that. I mean, we're going back to when they were, really, really small clients, but I was happy to take them on.
Sure.
One, they're great people. They're I love, hey, come on in. I'm happy to chat with you because they're great people, right? But the growth that they've had, one of them's gotten married and become a stepfather. He started his own business. Another one left the job that he was at previously, started his own business, and his income has gone up tremendously because he took a risk and he started, he went with another company and he's doing awesome. He's doing great. That's fun.
I love that you use the word fun. I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah.
We work with clients that have multiple millions. We work with clients who don't.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But some of those fun ones, that's what makes it enjoyable. I don't do what I do because I get paid. I could do other things and get paid. I do what I do because I love what I do, right? And those kind of clients make it fun. So please, please, please do not get it stuck in your head. I don't have enough money. I am not worthy. I am not whatever. Get professional help because you'd be amazed just how valuable it can be to you and to the advisor that you're working with as well.
I think it's time to talk about bourbon.
I think we've put a pretty good hit on this bourbon. What do you think? Because obviously you like it.
I would love to put a bigger hit on this bourbon. Once again,
120 plus proof.
So I say this. Right? I say this a lot, right? I'm not the tasting notes guy.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy that's going to come in and tell you I detect hints of this and that. I'm not that. My palate's not that refined, right? I can taste. We're talking about like cinnamon, orange.
Yes, lots of cinnamon and citrus specifically.
Cinnamon, orange, butterscotch, a lot of butter. This is just delightful.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have a convert.
Yeah,
He's starting to pick it up.
Well, it may be because it's just so strong and just the way that, but this is good.
There's a common belief among bourbon snobs that the higher the proof, the more flavor. I don't know that I agree with that. But as the proof goes up, you do get more things. And I don't know about you, as I was putting more and more water into it, it was changing it.
It changed the flavors a little bit. It wasn't less, though.
No, it was not less at all. There is the first taste, it's a little hot, right? A little spicy. And I mean that in a good way. As I was putting drops of water in it, all right, I'm going to geek out for a minute, that citrus, and I was getting a lot of orange. It became more grapefruit-like, right? And it was it really did change the flavor. Even if you were watching, I only put a couple of drops in there. But there was so much going on in this. I would expect this. We said this was about 7.5 years old. This tastes more like something that's 12 or 13 years old as far as the complexity to it.
I never would have thought this was a 7-year
No, if we were blind tasting this, I would have said this is at least 12 years old, at least, because there's so much going on. I'm pleased to hear that you were picking up different notes. That's awesome.
It's 120 plus.
Yeah.
There's nothing down the throat. It is smooth.
Well, occasionally,
it's dangerous.
If you were watching this, occasionally when you drink something, it kind of hits you the wrong way. And when it's something that's got alcohol in it, kind of burns. I did that if you were watching. Just hit the back of my throat the wrong way. My eyes started watering a little bit. I took a little sip of water, and then all of a sudden, it tasted good again. But to your point, this doesn't have that burn going down the chest, that hug, for something that's this high proof. I would recommend cutting it just to bring out other flavors, not because it's so high proof.
It doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it. But it's really good right out of the bottle.
But it's not bad at all when you cut it. No.
There's so much going on in this. I would like to try this in different types of glass, and we've talked about that before. Anybody who says that the glass doesn't matter has never tried the same thing in radically different glasses. These are Glencairn glasses. I would love to try this in a brandy snifter. I would like to try this in just a regular rocks glass or something like that. I'll bet you it'll change the flavor. And you know what? As delicious as that is, I'm looking forward to trying this in different types of glass just to see.
I would like to try this in the old plastic cups that my mom had when we were kids.
Yeah.
I don't care what I try this out of. This is
going to be good no matter what you put it in.
It's not going to suck in anything that you put it in.
Yeah. You understand why people have waited in line to get something like this. And me personally, I'm encouraged as a consumer, not as a producer. If I was a bourbon producer, I'd be a little worried. As a consumer, I'm excited because this kind of thing is going to become more and more available.
Prices are going to come down, more available, 100%.
Now, that being said, Buffalo Trace, different product line. I don't know if you heard about what happened last weekend.
With the Weller Black?
With the Weller White Label.
Or the White, I'm sorry, the White, yeah.
Father's Day weekend on Saturday, they said, we're going to release Weller White Label. Pictures were taken inside the gift shop that morning, and there were racks of it. It wasn't just one little table. So a friend of mine and I said, you know what, we're going to make the trip. We're going to wait till the afternoon, though, so that we don't have to deal with lines. Oh, my gosh. We drove up there. He came out, picked me up. We drove from my house. It's 20, 25 minutes to the distillery. There were people parked a half a mile away from the distillery entrance.
Oh, wow.
We finally got up close. And when we did get close, we never parked. We never got out of the vehicle. It's like, I've had White Label. It's awesome. It ain't that awesome. They measure, if you've ever been to Buffalo Trace, they measure the line to get in what they call snakes. How many times did that line wrap around? I couldn't count that high. It was just this mass of humanity, and it's like, okay, Buffalo Trace has figured something out. Instead of dropping their prices, they're going to tell people what's out there, and people are waiting in line for hours. They're parking a long way away. I have been to college football games with 70,000+ or more people in the stadium where you don't have to park that far away to get to it. I've never seen anything like that. Remember you were limited to buy a bottle of bourbon. So the industry's changing. Some things are going to become more available. These companies have got so much money invested in what's sitting in those rick houses right now. They're going to find ways to not drop that price and get you to be willing to pay for it. So it's going to be interesting how that pans out in the future. Yeah. But
I'm just seeing it, though, when I go to Kroger or Liquor Barn. Mm-hmm. I'm just seeing more selection available.
There's more out there, yeah.
Yeah, just anecdotally, who knows. But as a consumer, I'm not going to complain.
To the president, Campbell Brown.
Campbell Brown, good.
Wow, that's
good
awesome.
Pick. This is a good pick.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know what the other barrels are like, but I suddenly want to find out what all of them taste like. I'm not going to spend that kind of money, but well done. This is outstanding stuff.
For sure. So we are going to finish the drink. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. If anything that we say resonated with you or you think it might resonate with anyone that you know, please feel free to share our content. We would greatly appreciate it. Until next time.